President William Ruto finally cracks the whip on cabinet ministers, announcing his first reshuffle touching on various key ministries on Wednesday night.
Former nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura appointed government spokesperson, with political analyst Gabriel Muthuma and TV47 news anchor Mwanaisha Chizuga named as deputy spokespersons.
And to some sports news, Morocco named as one of 6 countries to host the 2030 World Cup, which will be held across 3 continents, with other matches to be played in Spain, Portugal, Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay as the tournament marks 100 years.
And it is on that note that we kick off this edition of Morning Cafe. Good morning. How hot is a coffee where you are? My name is Fred Indimuli. Let's start off. I know everyone wants to talk about the cabinet, but this World Cup being played across 3 continents, what exactly is that?
And actually, makofi kwa Mwanaisha Chizuga.
Well, Mwanaisha Chizuga, congratulations on being appointed deputy government spokesperson.
Oh, yes.
Good move there. And of course, on the other side, this morning we'll be speaking on matters single parenthood. Now, in the last Madaraka celebrations on June 1st, 2022, former President Uhuru Kenyatta raised concerns concerning the increase in the number of single moms in the country from 25.1% in 2009 to around 35% in 2019 census. But what has been done since then? We speak to experts as well as case studies concerning that to find what the cause is, as well as what can be done to solve this crisis. I'm Flora Limuki. Welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe.
And abused Stanley Nyerungita, Benjamin Zulu and Linda Kawira will be right here with us just to discuss this particular discussion on single parenthood. Today is also International Teachers' Day. So a shout out to our teachers out there who actually really taught us to where we are.
And most of our moms.
Definitely. And also, and if you also passed through Kenya Character Development Institute, there are also some teachers there. Oh, yes. Some teachers there. Oh, yes.
You look like you're just fresh from some character development.
I might be a professor.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You're a teacher by yourself.
Good morning, Kenya. Good morning, the world. Welcome to Morning Cafe. The hashtag is always Morning Cafe. You can always chime in into this particular show. Social media handles at TV47KE, at TV47 News, that is on X, mine at Nyerungita _ at Lemoki _F, and at Fred Indimuli to the big story right now.
To the top story which everyone is talking about, President William Ruto on Wednesday night announced his first cabinet reshuffle, affecting a number of ministries, with some merged and others renamed. The president has now expanded the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary to include the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has been moved to the newly reconstituted and renamed Ministry of Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management. His former docket for Industrialization, Trade and Industry will now be headed by CS Rebecca Miano, who has been moved from the Ministry of East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development. Alfred Mutua has been moved from the Foreign and Diaspora Affairs docket and will now head the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. The President has meanwhile established a new docket for the Ministry of Gender, Culture and Arts and Heritage, which will be headed by Aisha Jumwa. The Ministry of Youth Affairs, Arts and Sports has been renamed Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports and will remain under Ababu Namwamba, who has not been affected by the reshuffle. Alice Wahome heads to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, switching positions with Zachariah Njeru, who now takes over the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. The head of state also reorganized the principal secretaries and named ambassadors to 31 diplomatic missions. And as we had mentioned, the former nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura has been appointed government spokesperson, with political analyst Gabriel Muthuma and our very own TV47 News anchor Monesha Chizuga named as deputy spokespersons. Now this morning we're asking, do you think the latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? Do you think this latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? This is a question you will get to interact with at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Kindly, let's get the conversation going. For now, let's get the day's diary, then we'll look at the dailies.
Well, Stanley has the updates on the diary this morning.
And this particular diary, it's actually one of those days that, well, you prepare for a day, but then the day drastically changes. And a number of actually cabinet secretaries were preparing to maybe launch something or maybe, be in attendance in a particular event. Case in point, this particular morning, we're expecting now the former Trade Cabinet Secretary, Moses Kuria, to be launching that particular, the county aggregation pack in Garissa this particular morning. This was following a similar event that happened in Homa Bay yesterday, but now, well, he is in a different docket. We'll be seeing how that will be playing along that particular reshuffle. And still on this particular reshuffle, again, the fact that it took effect as of yesterday. So we'll be seeing some of this reshuffled ministries and reorganized ministries, if they will be taking office this particular morning, and how that will be playing along as well. But to other matters now, matters go on graft, and what will be happening in Parliament. So the Senate Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism will be meeting the Director General, Competition Authority of Kenya, today to consider petition by Nicholas Rono from Bomet County on the fraudulent acquisition of shareholding at East Africa Breweries Limited, that is EABL, and UDV Kenya. And still on matters Parliament. So the Departmental Committee, now this is on matters national tax policy. So the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning is expected to meet with the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, that is ISPAC, Deloitte and Touche, Institute of Public Finance, Anjola and Hana Advocates, LL, and Westminster Consultants with regard to the national tax policy this particular morning. And also just a reminder, today is International Teachers' Day. So even as we're asking you this particular morning on matters, the whole cabinet reshuffle, and if it will actually work, you could at least tell us, by the way, who is that one teacher that you'll never really forget? Well, as we wrap up, we'll be sharing our own, that particular one teacher that you'll never really forget. But Fred and Flora, matters, speaking of teachers and being taught some lessons, on the dailies this morning, it's a big shock.
Oh yes, teacher number one. On the Standard, shock cabinet reshuffle. New broom, President William Ruto yesterday shuffled his cabinet, a move that saw vocal Moses Kuria pushed from the Trade Ministry to that of Public Service. Mudavadi, the biggest winner in the reshuffle, adds foreign and diaspora affairs to his docket as Alfred Mutua moves to tourism. The president also appointed ambassadors as he moved principal secretaries. The main story is on page 10. Only a select few faces on the front page. That's Musalia Mudavadi, the PCS winner, getting the foreign affairs docket added to him. Loser, well, this is according to the Standard, not my words. Alfred Mutua from Foreign Affairs to Tourism. Another winner, Ales Wahome from Water to Lands. A major move there. And another loser, Moses Kuria from Trade to Public Service. And that's a big story on the front page of the Standard this morning. And I think before this reshuffle, the Standard had already planned another big story. And this is greed is making government hurt Kenyans. A tell-all in an exclusive interview. Azimio leader Raila Odinga opens up on his decision to take a back seat amid myriad governance issues and says since the current regime is a product of corruption, The country should brace for a rough ride. He also feels government is chasing investors through direct competition. The story is on pages 2 and 3. And you know what happens, and I've seen even on Twitter people saying, on X, that sometimes when you know something big is going to happen, you come up with something bigger. To cover that. So this interview by Raila Odinga that the Standard is quoting was probably going to be the biggest headline on the front page. And the president pulled a fast one and renamed his cabinet. And now everyone is talking about the cabinet and no one is talking about what Raila said.
Interesting enough.
The other story on the front page of the Standard this morning, UAE farm to take over Telkom. This was a big story yesterday. And now revelations that a Dubai farm will take over Telkom Kenya. The story is on the business pages 22. And the highlights on the top strip of the Standard this morning: death, destruction in wake of fresh Sondu clashes. Stories on page 7. On health matters, hope as WHO okays a second malaria vaccine. Story on page 12. In the real estate pullout, on the inside pages, our landlords are keeping rents high. And in sports,
you can skip that one.
Same old, Devils tumble again. And that, really, I'm sure, must be what is covered on the back page. Same old United.
We don't really have to focus much on it. I mean, there's a whole cabinet reshuffle. That's
nice
really
photo
deep.
there of Manchester United goalkeeper Andre Onana reacting with pain and agony
we should be looking
after conceding a goal. And he has conceded many.
I think Onana has had
match
the
against
last...
Nottingham Forest at Old Trafford. Wow. You should get used to this kind of facial expression.
Just had a rough
it will
time.
happen more often. Same old United. Red Devils wars continue. Wow. Interesting.
Well, listen.
Well, those are the main stories on the Standard. It's Thursday.
Well, and on the Daily Nation, this morning, top headline there, Musalia's big win. Principal secretaries and ambassadors also affected in the reshuffle, and pictured there the several changes as Dr. Alfred Mutua moved to Tourism and Wildlife, Rebecca Mia to the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, Moses Kuria moves to the Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Aisha Jumwa, Gender, Culture, the Art and Heritage, Alice Wahome now will serve in the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, while Penina Malonza is the East African Community, the ASALS and Regional Development CS. And finally, Zachariah Njeru is the new Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary. And the Musalia Mudavadi there will serve as the official office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, as well as the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Those are some of the changes that President Ruto yesterday created. He created a new ministry as he made his cabinet first reshuffle that elevated Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi by handing him the influential Foreign Affairs docket. CS Moses Kuria and Alice Wahome, who had courted controversy in their previous positions, were among those who were moved as the head of state reorganized his government by shifting functions and reconstituting some of the ministries just a year after their appointment. And that story is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation there. And on the right strip of the Daily Nation, teachers' pain and unfailing hope amid shortages in the sector. And as the teachers mark World Teachers' Day today, every teacher the nation talked to yesterday was more worried about learners they teach than the challenges they face. That story on teachers there is on page 2 of the Daily Nation, and a happy World Teachers' Day to every teacher out there. And matters football there, Klopp wants Spurs versus Liverpool replay after VAR blunder. Jurgen Klopp there wants Liverpool's match at Tottenham to be replayed due to the VAR error that cost them an opening goal over the weekend. Stories on page 43 of the Daily Nation. And a Dubai firm is to get Helios Telecom a stake. A story there also covered on the Standard this morning. And away from that, a social worker to spend 35 years in jail for child theft. That story is on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And, I didn't pay myself. Chiloba now says in the CA mortgage saga, I remember Chiloba was fired just a few weeks ago, while denying that he was both the seller and buyer in the 25 million mortgage saga that got him suspended as CA boss, the Communication Authority. He accuses the authority's board of punishing him unheard. A story there, you'll find it on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. And some matters, the cost of living, they're suffering amid plenty irony of CBK food and prices report. That interesting read there is on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning, KDF to fully exit Somalia next year, says Duale. The Somalia government has requested second phase of troops withdrawal to be delayed by 3 months. That is what's headlining on the Daily Nation this morning.
Katika gazeti la Taifa leo asubuhi ya leo nitaanza na masuala ya michezo, sababu wenzangu hapa wameshinda wakiticheka kama shabiki sugu wa timu ya Manchester United. Na Taifa leo asema kuwa Arsenal FC, Man United wanagiza manioshikilia mkia wa jedwali la kundi A baada ya Bayern kuwalemea. Katika ukurasa wa 20. Vitekezo vingine ni kuwa na habari kuu katika gazeti la Taifa leo, marathi ajabu. Shule upili ya hivi punde, shule upili ya wasichana ya Busakami ni ya hivi punde zaidi kuathiriwa na ugonjwa ambao bado haujulikani. Tume maadili na kukabiliana na ufisadi EACC imetuma mapendekezo kwa kidokezo kingine kwa kamati ya majadiliano ya kitaifa ikitaka kupewa uwezo zaidi wa kuzuia watu wasiokuwa na maadili kuteuliwa serikalini. Ukurasa wa 2. Na Taifa leo asubuhi leo haijaangazia habari kuu ikiwa cabinet reshuffle. Hapo chini katika Taifa leo, EACC yataka meno ya kung'ata. Yaendelea kusema kuwa imependekeza iwe na uwezo wa kuzuia watu wasiokuwa na maadili kuteuliwa serikalini. Kwingineko ni kwa wanajeshi 23 India wafa kwa mafuriko. Kwingineko ni kuwa hofu mahakama ikitoa uamuzi wa kihistoria kuhusu usawa wa kijinsia. Mahakama Kuu imetoa uamuzi wa kihistoria ambao athari yake itatapakaa kote. Mahakama hiyo ilisitisha vikao vya kaunti Uasin Gishu kwa kutozingatia usawa wa kijinsia miongoni mwa wawakilishi wa kaunti hiyo. Mengine katika ukurasa wa 2. Vitekezo vingine la mwisho pale juu katika huko Marekani, Biden ashukuru Ruto kupeleka polisi Haiti. Unaweza angazia taarifa hii katika ukurasa wa 2. Kenya itaongoza kikosi cha Umoja wa Mataifa kudumisha amani Amerika Kusini. Hayo ndio hivyo ndio vidokezo katika gazeti la Taifa leo, lakini taarifa kuu ni marathi ya ajabu katika shule ya upili ya wasichana ya Busakani.
Nimeona pale kuna Man United yaona giza.
Na Arsenal.
Tuangalie gazeti la People Daily. On the People Daily, yes, same theme. Poor performers moved in shuffle. Ruto reshuffles cabinet. Mudavadi emerges the biggest winner after President reorganizes ministries. Isaac Mwaura becomes the government spokesman and new ambassadors appointed. Stories on page 4. The other big story is on the top strip of the People Daily. New twist in 6 billion shilling telecom sale saga as UAE firm picked to buy out Helios. And this definitely should be making bigger headlines. I don't know what to say about it. It made the biggest headline tomorrow, the sale of Telecom Kenya. But everything today, as we said, has been overshadowed by the cabinet reshuffle. Yes. Other highlights on the front page of the People Daily. 960 million shillings for sanitary pads goes missing, say MPs. Sad story. And the Regi Girls School now closed after 95 fall sick. And that's the front page of the People Daily today.
Well, and on the Star this morning, quite a different headline they have there. Kalonzo Omar in bitter spat at as a team retreats. What started as boardroom fallout is increasingly playing out in public sittings. And away on the right strip of the Star this morning, we have the KDF to withdraw from Somalia by December next year. And more than 4,000 Kenyan Defense Forces soldiers will exit Somalia by December next year. The Defense CS aide and Duale there said, the CS said the withdrawal of the African Union Transmission Mission in Somalia, AFMIS, formerly the African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM, is already underway and being done in 4 phases. That story there is on page 6 of the Star. And 10 years in jail for holding dollar beyond 45 days. That is in the proposed new bill. And on the right, on the top strip of the Star, ex-Mama Lucy Hospital social worker jailed for 35 years. That is what is headlining on the Star this morning. Quite different. Would have expected to see Matters CSs there.
I just means the newsroom went to sleep a bit early because this news came in at 9 p.m.
Interesting, because the other time we had a joint headline for all the dailies. The Star still had a different headline that morning.
Well, it's a point of departure. You need to, because the market today, everyone is flooded with the cabinet reshuffle.
Oh, yes.
It's a selling point, having a different story as well.
Yes, true.
Let's cross over to Uganda now.
Actually, I do, before taking a look at Uganda, that particular story you're mentioning about the whole Telkom and, well, Helios exit, it is a big story on Business Daily.
Oh, yeah.
And Business Daily also highlights other bits that other dailies are talking about, the whole dollar hoarding. And the big story on Business Daily, Emirati company gets majority stake in Telkom on Helios exit. Taking a look at even the first paragraph of it, United Arab Emirates UAE-based firm will take up a majority stake in Telkom Kenya from London's Helios investment partners, marking the latest twist in the deal room of the loss-making telco. The story is making it to Business Daily on the bottom strip there. Why NSE has been ranked the worst performing in Africa. Okay, so NSE has been ranked the worst performing African bonds in the first 9 months of the year in dollar returns, highlighting the impact of foreign exits and global shocks on East Africa's biggest stock market. And economists and people who understand this will tell you why, and we're really performing poorly. On the right side, that ticker there, firms freeze hiring on tax, interest rates, pain. And now this particular story here looks quite interesting. Dollar hoarders face 10 million shillings fines and shilling slumps towards an 155 mark. So you'll get this more on page 6, but just a brief of it. Firms caught stockpiling dollars beyond quote-unquote reasonable needs face fines of up to 10 million Kenyan shillings in new proposals that seek to stamp out the hoarding of hard currency as the local currency depreciates towards the 155 mark. On the markets on page 14, you'll get this story. Treasury returns to short-term debt in 35 billion shillings bond. And on the top strip there, an op-ed by Ambassador Bitangendemo talking about mechanization of tea picking does not necessarily result in unemployment. Instead, it increases opportunities. And the bullet there in the inside pages on page 19, holidaying in idyllic grace. Right, just some of those pages that you look at and you say, hopefully, you'll get to holiday there. That's on the Business Daily this morning.
We can cross the border now and
Yes.
Let's go to Uganda. And in Kampala this morning, the Daily Monitor headlines with Return of the King. Home at last, Ruenzururu Kingdom exploded to ecstatic celebrations as Omusinga Charles Wesley Mumbere returned home nearly 7 years after he was forced out of his palace, following a devastating military raid which left hundreds of subjects and royal guards dead. There's a special coverage on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor today, and that's the big news in Kampala this morning. Tuvuke boda tuende Tanzania.
Aya, katika gazeti la Mwananchi hii leo, petroli dizeli bado kitanzi, bei ya juu nchini yafikia shilingi 3,500. OPEC yabana uzalishaji wa mafuta kusaka faida zaidi. Makali ya bei huenda yakang'ata zaidi hadi mwakani. Wachumi wadau waeleza suluhisho. Na mbali na hayo, vigezo wanufaika 1,500 mikopo vyuo vya kati. Na vilevile katika gazeti la Mwananchi, kizungumkuti mfumo wa taa za kuongozea ndege KIA. Vilevile katika gazeti la Mwananchi hii leo, spika baraza la wawakilishi Marekani alivyong'olewa. Na taarifa nyingine hapo katika gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania ni mambo mane yanavyokwaza walimu kazini. Hii leo mambo si matatu huko, mambo ni mane kule Tanzania. Na hii leo walimu tunaidhinisha siku ya kuwasherehekea walimu wote nchini. Nimemaliza Kiswahili yangu ya hii wiki. That's what we have on the Mwananchi this morning.
All right, and finally on the sister page of Mwananchi, The Citizen. The big story there, also reflecting on matters why more fuel pain is on the way. So Tanzanians should brace for even higher fuel prices driven by the strengthening of the US dollar and cuts in crude oil production by the OPEC Plus group. More that is on page 2. Other highlights making it to The Citizen. Tackle education wars, teachers urge government. That is on the top strip there. And just below The Citizen, ESC budget crisis drags on. And recalling Salem and Cold War intrigues on page 4. And finally, loans, fresh hope for diploma students. That is on The Citizen. I think the end of the whole review of these papers, but we definitely have to take a look at the caricature, the cartoons this morning. Page 15 of Daily Nation and page 14 of The Standard this morning. On page 15, quite an interesting one, actually. Speaking on matters, whole taxes, and IMF and World Bank telling the Kenya Kwanza government, that is on the Daily Nation this morning, that you're taking a look at, faced, not forced tax. Page 15 of Daily Nation. And they have minting money, so trying to get more money, but then really squeezing the common Mwananchi there. There's a caricature of a gentleman there, probably wearing a yellow cardigan, and he's following orders, just rotating that machine there, minting more money from Kenyans. That is on Daily Nation. Fred, Flora?
Yeah, we do have the cartoon on The Standard, and this is about police and corruption. And I think the police boss saying, no, please, ladies and gentlemen, let's work together to fight corruption. But all the caricature shows that everyone is trying to give the main man something, either through mobile money, through briefcases, and through some handouts. And I think this refers to that admission by the police IG that some junior officers tried to bribe him. Interesting. Those are the cartoons on the dailies this morning. Remember, our conversation today will majorly center around cabinet reshuffle. And our guests this morning, Honorable Lotee Titus, MP Kacheliba, and political analyst Daniel Orogo will be in studio for this conversation. Our question this morning, do you think this latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? Continue interacting with us on our social media pages, TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Demonstrate, a place to absorb the dead and suppress
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. And a quick recap of our top story before we get down to the discussion. President William Ruto on Wednesday night announced his first cabinet reshuffle, affecting a number of ministries and some merged and others renamed. The president has now expanded the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, headed by Musalia Mudavadi, to include the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has been moved to the newly reconstituted and renamed Ministry of Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management. His former docket for industrialization, trade and industry will now be headed by CS Rebecca Miano, who has been moved from the Ministry of East African Community, the ESALs and Regional Development. Alfred Mutua, meanwhile, has been moved from the Foreign and Diaspora Affairs docket and will now head the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. The president has meanwhile established a new docket for the Ministry of Gender, Culture and Arts and Heritage, which will be headed by Aisha Jumwa. The Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Arts and Sports has been renamed Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. The Arts has been removed, and that will remain under Ababu Namwamba, who has not been affected by the reshuffle. Alice Wahome heads over to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, switching positions with Zachariah Njeru, who now takes over the Ministry of Water and Sanitation. The head of state also reorganized the principal secretaries and named ambassadors to 31 diplomatic missions. Remember our question this morning: do you think the latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? Continue interacting with us on our social media pages at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. This morning, as I mentioned earlier, the Honorable Titus Lotee, MP Kacheliba constituency, is with us. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa. And Daniel Orogo, political analyst. Karibu sana, Daniel.
Pleasure.
Gentlemen, I know this cabinet reshuffle has actually changed everything for the newspapers today. You can actually see the plan that was there initially. And you can tell that the Daily Nation was going to go with the Dubai farm to get Helios Telcom stake. That was going to be the big news for the Daily Nation today. On the Standard, the big story would have been this interview with the former Prime Minister. It's an exclusive interview for the Standard and its affiliate stations. Now the cabinet reshuffle has overtaken these discussions, but probably a brief mention of what the Prime Minister says. The former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, in an exclusive interview with the Standard, talked about so many things and why he has been silent. And on the issue of constitution review, and he says it is time. The ongoing talks should lead to a constitutional review, given that after 13 years since the promulgation of the Constitution in August 2010, it was time for Kenyans to have a debate on what is best and what needs to be reviewed. Over 10 years, and this is a quote, is enough to know how the shoe fits. In the United States, they reviewed their Constitution a year after it was written. For us, it is time we have a genuine conversation on what needs to be changed. And this is what is happening at the Bomas of Kenya. Of course, we saw that unfortunate exchange between one of the co-chairs, former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, and one of the members of that panel, Hassan Omar. The talks, there are people who still feel they're consequential. There are those who say nothing will come out of it. The former Prime Minister insists it is time for us to relook at our Constitution, and the best route is what is happening at Bomas. Let's start with you, Lotee.
Thank you. And good morning to Kenyans who are watching, and also the people of Kacheliba who are also watching me. This is a good morning, and we've woken up to all these shouting headlines from the newspapers, and I think that is the discussions that Kenyans are having. But before we go into the cabinet reshuffle, I think what you have said is very important about our Constitution and the fact that we need to probably look into our Constitution and change some bit of the Constitution. I think it is critical and it's important, like what the former Prime Minister has said, that we need to change our Constitution. And some bit of it is something that has been there in this country for some time. You remember the BBI, where we had the BBI 1, we also had the BBI 2. Most of those proposals were aiming to change the constitution. So for me, I'll say nobody can underrate what is happening in Bomas. For those who are thinking that Bomas is coming out with hot air, I think they need to relook into their thinking once again. Because this country, this kind of talks are the ones that have changed this country. You remember the changing of Article 2A in our previous constitution that then brought in the multi-party democracy. It started like a talk. And when the talk did not materialize, people went into the streets, the infamous Sabasaba. And after this, Moi was forced to change. Just one bit of the constitution brought the whole thing that we're seeing now, the multi-partyism. Well, we've seen the kind of other talks that have followed after that. Every talk that we have in this country, that is as serious as what we see in Bomas, because in Bomas, every institution, every person, every party has been given the chance to go and present. That is not just taking Kenyans for a ride. That is actually receiving the feedbacks of Kenya. So for me, standing here, and for any Kenyan that is serious, and any Kenyan that knows the history of this country, the talks in Bomas is the right way to do, and is going to bring the changes that we desire. So nobody should actually say that we are wasting government money or public funds to just have people sit and receive proposals that are going nowhere. So these talks are going to actually give us the changes that we might desire. Okay. And I think every Kenyan is allowed to go and present petitions and present their views to what needs to be done in this country.
Okay. Daniel, there was that drama that has been amplified in some of the headlines, and that spat between the co-chair, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Hassan Omar. And people are saying that when you see smoke, there's definitely fire, and that there could be forces quite eager to undermine the talks at the Bomas of Kenya with the National Dialogue Committee. Do you still believe that those talks will be consequential?
Well, I took a position. Once again, it's also to say good morning to our viewers, and it was such a blessed day to be here. The last time I was here, we took a stand, and we were of the view, personally, that there is nothing wrong with having the National Dialogue Committee holding a conversation about the issues that affect this country. Fred, I was, however, concerned always about the format, the history of such conversations, and what has been the outcome of this conversation. And if our memory serves as well, I remember I also mentioned that there might be a divergent opinion, because we have summoned political players to lead these talks with interest that some expand to hidden interest, like you've just intimated. So, just like as we gave a view, the other time, it's now evident that the hot spat yesterday between the Legislative and East African Community and the Wiper Party leader, coincidentally, who has been his mentor in the party, is purely a divergent opinion yesterday about the review. I mean, is the audit of the last election, and of course it brings to fore the divergent opinion within the panel, and with 263 submissions, and remaining few days for this committee to give a report and retreat and give a report, it is evident that much of those agenda items, the committee and the select panel would not agree on some of them, which is evident that matters of electoral reforms and reconstitution of IBC is going to be a smoking issue, with regards to that report. I agree with the Honorable Member of Parliament on the matters that yearly and after post-electoral period, and there's always a constitutional moment to discuss whether we would review some of the contents of our constitution. That is an ideal conversation to discuss. And I still maintain that, however, if who is championing for that process, we leave it to purely a political processes, the outcome becomes political. Even with the acceptance of submissions from different players and stakeholders, like the Honorable has mentioned, we still believe that this process will be concocted to, have a constitutional moments that are purely politically driven, and that questions whether it is a people-driven and not aware of the legal landmines that have fallen the fate of similar attempts in Punguza Mizigo, in BBI, and other similar conversations. So I think, Fred, that is the state of things right now.
Okay. Honorable Lotee, the issue is that such a spot, for it to appear in public, it must have been simmering behind the scenes for quite a while. The cracks there, do you think, because there are people who argue that yes, a discussion at this level, definitely there will be strong disagreements, and probably that's just a sign of good things to come. There are others who simply say that because they are fighting in public, then the stocks are as good as done. Which one do you think is the truth here?
I think as a country we need to be positive. I think for many years we've actually driven ourselves to the negative side of looking at everything. For every, not only this one, for any point where people are supposed to reconcile their minds and they're coming from different thought of view, you will always find those kind of heated debates. So for me, I will not say that there is anybody who has sent anybody else to scuttle the whole process. The whole process is ongoing, and I think it's going well. It is only that people are trying to express their opinion and or to force their opinion above the opinion of the others. And so when that happens, the others will resist, and then we can actually see this kind of spats that we saw yesterday. So if it was only in Bomas, if it was only in the negotiation in Bomas, then I will say that then there is something, there is a lot of fire behind the smoke. But because for every negotiation, we actually saw this when Kofi Annan was here. And even before Kofi Annan, there was the president of Tanzania, the late president of Tanzania, who came. And there was no agreement. In fact, it was terrible. And even before we came to this Bomas talk, there was another panel that was set. And in that panel, you remember the former prime minister saying that the president for the current president for Tanzania came here, and the President Ruto never received this person. Why? And the former prime minister said because Ruto did not want the talks to take place. So that is part of any negotiation. At the first point of contract,
you disagree first.
People do not want to. People who have disagreed, they do not even want to sit together. And then after some times, they will want to see through a mediator. After some times, they will disagree on very strong points. After some times, they will have some common grounds. And then after some time, we will have points where they will agree. And I think it is a whole process.
Trading in between.
It is about trading in between. So at this point where we saw yesterday, we saw this part because there was strong conviction from both sides that their personal opinion was supposed to be the opinion that was supposed to be taken. And because there was resistance from the other side, then we expected that. But I will not believe that that will continue. If it continues for 3, 4, 5 days, I think the negotiators that are there will then have to change tact. Otherwise, for me, it is a normal process, and we should not look at it negatively. It is part of a negotiation that happens in any part of our society, be it a family, be it at the international stage, be it even at the local stage, or even a country stage like we've seen yesterday.
And this now leads us to a possible connection with this cabinet reshuffle. And one of the proposals that would be considered or should be considered as presented by the President's party to the talks is the entrenchment of the office of a Prime Cabinet Secretary. Now that we are looking at a cabinet reshuffle that has given the person holding this position currently a substantive role in government with the Foreign and Diaspora Affairs docket now under the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. Do you think that this, in a way, signals probably a reluctance on the part of the President to pursue the talks? Because there's no longer urgency in entrenching that position. Because now Musalia Mudavadi has a substantive role in cabinet. He is in charge of foreign and diaspora affairs. Whether or not the process at Bomas works, his position is now secure?
Well, I think you've rightfully pointed. This was foreseen by political pundits because, one, let's give it to the President of Republic of Kenya as a political, master player, has a sense of stroke in politics and, sees ahead. The talks at Bomas of Kenya sometimes outcome might be unexpected. And I foresee this from a political position in a sense that, yes, there is a push for referendum, that Kenyans would probably have a plebiscite. And I said this before here, that the nature of that plebiscite might be a popular initiative or it might go through the parliament. But either way, what if the popular opinion is that we could not entrench the public of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary in the Constitution, like there had been a test, thrown the air whether to expand, the executive, and that might also receive a similar fate from the courts or the public, that position might not be popular with what the Republic of Kenyans would want. So in this sense, President Ruto, being a politician, might have foreseen things coming and now said, if, for example, in the plebiscite, people would not entrench this office, then I think it's good that we give, we entrench it legally, by, his executive order and, giving it to the Prime Cabinet Secretary as, an envoy, probably. And secondly, politically speaking, I foresee a situation where this is also, cutting the wings of the deputy president, for sure. And because of unpopular statements that the deputy president has made that do not resonate with the public. And there's been a public uproar on, the stature of what the DP talks about when he appears on a podium, regardless whether it's a national podium or international podium, he speaks. So I see a situation where that in itself is catapulting the Prime Cabinet Secretary to be the face of the Republic of Kenya in the international community as well. But also is a stroke in a sense that there is a plan for a succession of 2027 and who, gives it to be the running mate of the president, of the Republic, given that he's going to his second term. As I conclude, this is not the first time. The Honorable Musalia Mudavadi have been in the national conversation. You remember Eden Duale, putting it clear on his book and says that there's a time in 2013 when almost the candidature of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto was almost, coming to a halt when the Kibaki's inner sanctum, decided that it was going to be Musalia Mudavadi, to be an inheritor and a heir apparent of, President Kibaki by that time. One of the reasons he was suggested because of his international image. And I think this is also coming right now for his, economic, experience in economic, issues, his international image, but also on his stature as a unifying factor, the hygiene person that would definitely be a running mate and heir apparent to President William Ruto. This is from my own point of view.
Wow, interesting observation there. And we're just about to take a break. I know Honorable Lotee will also want to chime into that conversation about the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the new role that it's now undertaken. And remember our question today we are asking, do you think this latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? Or is it simply cosmetic? TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. We will continue breaking down bit by bit every decision that the president has made in this latest reshuffle. After the break, you're watching Morning Cafe. Daniel Orogo, political analyst. But a quick reminder of our political or of our top story today, even as we get back to the conversation. President William Ruto on Wednesday night announced his first cabinet reshuffle, affecting a number of ministries, which some merged and others renamed. The president has now expanded the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, headed by Musalia Mudavadi, to include the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has been moved to the newly reconstituted and renamed Ministry of Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management. His former docket for industrialization, trade and industry will now be headed by CS Rebecca Miano, who has been moved from the Ministry of East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development. Alfred Mutua has been moved from the Foreign and Diaspora Affairs docket and will now head the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. The president has meanwhile established a new docket for the Ministry of Gender, Culture and Arts and Heritage, which will be headed by Aisha Jumwa. The Ministry of Youth Affairs, Arts and Sports has been renamed Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports and will remain under Ababu Namwamba, who has not been affected by the reshuffle. Alice Wahome heads over to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, switching positions with Zakaria Njeru, who now takes over the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. The head of state also reorganized the principal secretaries and named ambassadors to 31 diplomatic missions. Our question this morning, do you think this latest cabinet reshuffle will help the government perform better? Continue interacting with us on social media, TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Gentlemen, back to my question on the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Do you think, as Daniel Orogo put it, Lotee, that probably the president saw ahead and saw that probable landmines that could occur in this constitution review process could probably put the position of Prime Cabinet Secretary at risk, and decided to entrench Musalia Mudavadi's position in his cabinet?
Well, I don't think so. I really don't think so, because if you look at Chapter 7 of our Constitution, Article 134, it gives the president the power in forming the government, including appointing of ministers, renaming of positions like he's done, reshuffling, the kind of reshuffles, all that is within the presidential's power. And I remember when this government took office, the president himself, when he did the first address in Parliament, he talked very passionately about the position of the opposition leader. He talked passionately about it. And the reason why we even find that this becomes one of the talks at Bomas, the position, entrenching of the position of the prime minister, which is not in the Constitution now, is also then also talked as a topic in the Bomas talk. It basically means it's not something that has been started now. It's something that has been started even before this government was properly formed. So it's a thought that was even before. And you look at the BBI also proposed the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. So for me, I will not say that this will be what the president is thinking, that the Bomas talk might not succeed either through Parliament or through popular initiative. Because what then will bar him, even if, for heaven's sake, the popular initiative reject the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, what is it that the president cannot do? Now, you can already see that we've got the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi. What the president has only done is try to reorganize this government to become more effective. Alfred Mutua, who has been denied that opportunity, has been flying from one country to another one, bringing goodies to these countries that have never materialized. And probably what the president has seen is that he wants to put this docket into somebody that don't have that kind of stature, somebody that has stayed in the public service for a long time, that can be able to negotiate. It's not about politics of future, because even if this Bomas talks does not entrench the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the president, through Article 134 of the Constitution, has the powers of even doing the same. He can even add more roles to any person within the cabinet. And so, because Prime Cabinet Secretary is part of the cabinet, he can get more roles. So that does not, these talks in Bomas will not bar the president now or even after the results of the talks to give more roles to any persons that he feels that can perform for his government. So I think what the president is trying to do is trying to, after some times, looking at how the performance of his government has been, is then trying to see how best he can be able to have his cabinet perform. If you look at Moses Kuria, the person that we've called the loser here, or even Wahome, these are people that have actually causing controversies within their ministries.
And we will get to them because I want us to go.
We will get to them, but then that is what I'm telling you. The president is trying to look at the weak points within the chain and strengthen it. And strengthening the weak part of the chain is to bring a person that he feels is strong. So for me, I will not look at it as a strategy for either reducing the powers of the deputy president or strategies of the 2027 elections. I think it is purely, at this point, purpose of functionality of government and the efficiency that he wants this government to be having.
Okay.
So
I'll take you back, Daniel, to a time like this last year. Okay, maybe later in the year, October, early November, immediately after the cabinet had been sworn in. And one of the headlines in the newspaper read, "Big office, no job." And that was describing the Prime Cabinet Secretary then, Musalia Mudavadi. A lot of jokes were made about even the where his office is currently situated, in the less luxurious, along the less luxurious Haile Selassie Avenue.
Yes.
Somewhere in the
Railways,
closer to Mudhurwa. Now, with this docket of foreign affairs and diaspora affairs under him, now he gets to occupy one of the most imposing buildings along Harambee Avenue, alongside the deputy president and the president himself. That does say something.
Yeah, the honourable member of parliament is not willing to admit, the political undertones that are within the presidency. The scramble for power and the need for President Ruto to cut the clips of the deputy president. That is evident. I mean, that is evident, Fred. I am looking at the picture there, and I'm looking at the sitting arrangement besides this, and these two gentlemen who are either deputizing the president. One which the presidency recognized by the law, is recognized the deputy president, and the other one who also was the principals in Kenya Kwanza, has an office that is not stipulated in the constitution. I foresee and I still predict that with the intelligence and with the President Ruto being a master politician, has foreseen things that are coming along his way. And one of the issues he's probably foreseen is that there might be a scuttle in the talks, and therefore he's trying to negotiate what if, the talks do not, because like I said in the last session here, that these two principles of Kenya Kwanza and Azimio found a landing space, and that is why you've seen a tone of language. Even on yesterday's conversation with the Prime Minister, he's not abrasive and confrontational as he has been in this regime. He has been very candid about the conversation yesterday, to the surprise of many Kenyans, on how that conversation was so cordial and, highlighting on the issues, but so cordial. If the Prime Minister was really dissatisfied, I don't think we would see this stability and this, cordialness in this conversation as we speak. So the conversation, the agreement, there are certain elements of this dialogue that these two leaders have agreed on. And one probably could have been to entrench the leader of opposition, take it and give it to Azimio, and give it to Kenya Kwanza to entrench the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, a win-win situation. But there seems to be a simmering disagreement that President Ruto might have read, and the landmine that it might have come, and the fate of BBI, who is the proposer of this plebiscite, the same fate. And the court is court because it will read a precedence of the ruling that was done with BBI. Who proposes for a constitutional amendment? That would come. And President Ruto probably have seen equally, what might come. And I still insist that him being a politician and trying to manage, his bid for 2027, trying to cut the clips and trying to market Kenya as well, as a league in the international play in regional stability, Kenyans the only way to do this is to enhance the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. If it's not in the Constitution, give it more powers by adding it more state departments or adding him another position in the foreign policy to promote the foreign policy of Kenya. To the detriment of who? The Deputy President. To the detriment of who? The conversation in the Mount Kenya region. And this is what I foresee as a political pundit. Honorable might have a different opinion, but this is from my own from my own conversation. Okay. And it's true, this is what is coming and is evident that is happening.
Okay. Musalia Mudavadi is now back on Harambee Avenue. What do you make of this? In reference to what Daniel has just said.
Well, thank you. One, I am not amused by the fact that Musalia Mudavadi is changing buildings, because changing of buildings.
He may actually retain both.
He might retain both. He might change building, but I think if you look at the office that is currently occupied by the Deputy President, that building was bought from an oil company when we had Kibaki that time, and Raila was the Prime Minister. It was created for the Prime Minister. So creation of offices, whether the locations where the offices are in Nairobi or Mombasa or anywhere, does not really change the magnitude or the power of the office. So whether it stays in Mudhurwa or it stays in Kacheliba, where I come from, he still becomes the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But the point is, Musalia Mudavadi has actually been in this. He's been the Deputy President sometimes, the Vice President then, in the former Constitution. So he's somebody that has got stature. So I will still insist that he's been given this position, and he said it very rightly, that President Ruto is trying to market Kenya globally through increasing its power of diplomacy and through his foreign missions. And so he wants somebody that can be able to manage foreign affairs of this country well, because foreign affairs is the softer power that a government has. Defense is the other coercive power. So you can either use the defense, where you go fight like we are in Somalia now, or you can use foreign affairs to be able to create diplomacy and be able to live amicably with other nations. So for me, I think what he said it very well, that President Ruto is trying to market Kenya globally and regionally. And I think he's already positioned Kenya that way. So with Musalia Mudavadi, probably we're going to see Kenya taking more roles and taking more advanced position in terms of global stability, regionally and also internationally. And the reason why we actually see now police have been recognized from Africa to lead peace activities in Haiti. So that is the thing that I want us to look at. Let us not always be in politics, that we finish elections today and we start looking at the next election, that anything that the president does is all about looking at what the next election is going to be. I don't think the president is trying to undermine the deputy president. Okay. If that was something that happened during Uhuru's time, and it was very clear, we saw that, President Ruto is not going to behave like President Uhuru Kenyatta.
He's not doing it.
So he is not going. And I think that is one thing that we need to take it very clearly. If you guys are used to presidents that oppress their deputies, I don't think Ruto will do that.
Okay.
I mean, it's, you've alluded to softer power. I think he's deploying softer power. His diplomatic, internal, domestic diplomatic nature, to make a statement to the deputy president that, time is up. This is a serious, government. We are post-campaign, and we're into delivery. The other thing, Fred, the other bit of it that I also foresee in this appointment, on the other end, is with the folding of the parties. That was also in my mind. What is it? Nothing in politics is coincidental. I mean, I see the conversation around the folding of parties that are within the Kenya Kwanza coalition into one. The ANC has been a major stake party in the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And and what I fear most, the conversation that I fear most, is the party that I am affiliated with, and I have seen growing in leaps and bounds. My worry is, would it be a give and take? That this particular position, a heavy portfolio, would be given to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, in the return that he finally surrender and instruct the ANC to fold finally.
And join UDA.
And join UDA. So as a political player, there is so many antennas, that I'm raising with this kind of...
It will happen. It has to happen within the next 2 months or so.
It has. So, because nothing is just coincidental. Everything is well planned and deliberate in this political move. So this I foresee. I don't know now the fate of Ford Kenya. I don't know the fate of Maendeleo chapter, given the party leader is now thrown into tourism and probably is on his way out of the cabinet. I don't know what happened with Chama cha Kazi. So I think this, for me, is one of the things that I want to be critically look into.
Okay, can you respond to that? Because I want us to go to that.
I actually went to, with a lot of respect, Daniel has taken a lot of time to look at the elections of 2027. And I think
he's a political analyst.
I agree, and totally I agree that he wants to take us to 2027 so that he looks at every decision that is being made now as a decision that is geared towards changing the landmarks of 2027. But I disagree totally on that because, one, President Ruto cannot bribe Raila, cannot bribe Musalia Mudavadi with a plum position so that he can relinquish ANC. I don't think that is it. They are in a coalition. That's why it's called Kenya Kwanza coalition. And for you to know that that is not what the president is doing, he's not trying to do that. Elections, the UDA elections are actually starting in December. That is a month from now or 2 months from now. That will have been the position if probably UDA elections will be here another 6 or 7 months, so that between now and then, the parties will have folded and come together. So it is not possible that today is given a plum position and tomorrow morning is asked to fold ANC. And in any case, if President Ruto was looking for a party to fold quickly, within the Kenya Kwanza coalition, I think ANC comes after Ford Kenya. Ford Kenya has got more members of parliament and got more followers than ANC. So probably if Ruto wanted to get somebody to fold his party and grow UDA quicker, he would have gone for the speaker, Moses Wetangula, who has more members of parliament. So I don't think Musalia Mudavadi, I don't know how many members of parliament you're a member of that party. Yes. How many members of parliament do you got?
Probably around 30 or something.
Yeah. ANC?
Yes. He doesn't have 30.
No, he doesn't have 30. It's fewer. Actually, Ford Kenya has got Ford Kenya has got more.
The question I want to ask now is because with the expected cabinet reshuffle, every Kenyan knew that heads were going to roll.
Yes.
A few people were going to be fired.
Yes.
That hasn't happened. But we've seen a punishment of some sort on some ministers that you've mentioned, and they happen to be party leaders as well. CS Moses Kuria is the party leader, Maendeleo Chapchap. Now that you're talking about parties within the Kenya Kwanza, Alfred Mutua is the party leader, Maendeleo Chapchap.
Yes.
I think Moses Kuria is Chama cha Kazi. Do you think the president, because of the pre-election deals he got into, that he's unable to fire any of these gentlemen? That he can now only punish them in different ways, but he is not able to actually say, get out of my cabinet?
Yeah, that's what I foresee. May I also point out that, and I keep on saying, the president has, and the whole machinery of UDA has probably a soft way of dealing with these big political players and coalition partners within Kenya Kwanza regime. It would be very surprising that the president is taking a soft approach in telling the coalition members that, you see, we want to build a party with a national outlook, and we would not force anyone to fold the party. But the general secretary, is very appressive and very open in saying there is no any other way, than to fold and join UDA. It can't be that the party leader and the general secretary are reading from different script on the same party. One is probably lying, the other one is probably saying the truth. So there is a sense in which I foresee, and I really take a twist from what Honorable is saying, that even though he might not be, as the president, as one who wants to appear as a unifying factor and a leader of a governing coalition that would want to unite his house and his children and his followers together. But I think there is an undertone about the need for quickly, because let's give it, the fact is, even as Honorable Member is saying that, we wouldn't want to think about 2027, Fred, there's already a campaign for to do so. There's already visiting of different regions to market themselves, and in the guise of these projects, both coalitions, not only on Kenya Kwanza, I mean everyone, all parties are recruiting, all parties are holding grassroots elections. There's a plan. So a plan to do what? A plan for 2027 to start early. So for the president and from my end, I foresee a situation where there's been a resistance also to fold the parties, and there is the only way the president would also want to cut a lot of demands, post-election pledges, torn in between, fulfilling post-election pledges, but also delivering to Kenyans. The only way is either to, softly force you out of this particular, arrangement, or you toe the line softly.
Okay.
This is purely political, and it has nothing probably to do with the relationship, the friendly relationship, the cordial relationship you had with William Ruto before as a deputy president, as a candidate, with him now as the president of the Republic of Kenya, because now he is accommodating national interest,
okay.
Not sectarian or party interest. He is now unifying. What would be the people in Nyanza ask him in his tour? They would ask for different portfolios as well. He would probably plan for the next meeting in Western Kenya. What would be the goodies that the president would bag and would say, I have recognized the importance of your son, and I have given a very huge portfolio in him, and therefore it is good time. He's keep on saying that you people, remember the president says in Western that I have been very cordial to you, but when it comes to election, Western Kenya, you elude me.
Exactly.
So I think it's time that he also goes back and say, guys, in Western, I am committed to the cause, and this is what I have done. It's time.
You spent some good time in Western Kenya a month ago. But Honorable Lotee, if you look at CS Moses Kuria's handle on X, from the time that this announcement was made, reshuffling the cabinet up until now, he's playing some very interesting music. And he's also posted a photo of the deputy president without mentioning anything, without writing anything to it. And everyone is telling him Pole, Kimekuramba, and all these things. It is obvious that he has been moved from a higher position to a lower one. The same is being said about Alfred Mutua. And the Standard has named them as losers on the front pages because one has been moved to public service from trade, the other one to tourism from foreign affairs. It is clear that they are somehow or somewhat being swept to the weaker corners of government. That will have an effect. They are party leaders. They are those, the same individuals who signed pre-election deals with the president. Back to my question. Do you think the president is unable to just say, get out of my cabinet, and he's only left with the option of giving them weaker portfolios?
Fred, I like your question, but one thing that I will say is that the person of President William Ruto is not a person that can fear. If he feels that he needs to get somebody out of office, he will have actually said, get out of office. There are two reasons why cabinet reshuffles are done, mostly two reasons. The first reason is to bring efficiency. And if you look at the portfolios of all the cabinet secretaries, they are all the same. They earn the same salary, they have got the same packages. So to say that there is one person being thrown from a good position to a bad position, are we trying to tell Kenyans that they are,
even from the
their
reaction
ministers?
of Moses Kuria.
Okay, well, just let me say, because there is a reaction because everybody is telling him now you have lost. Yeah. And so because everybody is telling you have lost, because of their perception, then you start probably to imagine that you have lost. But as Moses Kuria been denied of anything that a cabinet secretary in this country is supposed to have? No. Moses Kuria has got every right as any other cabinet secretary. So it is only Kenyans that are trying to portfolio these cabinet positions, to say this cabinet secretary holds a higher position than another one. Well, that could be a perception, but if we go to it...
Surely, if Musalia Mudavadi would have been given tourism instead of foreign affairs, the discussion would have been different.
Don't worry. I'm trying to say, legally, there is no position that is being... Show me in any writing that says that this cabinet position is bigger than this cabinet position. It is not there. It is a perception.
Some state departments are more consequential than others.
It's a perception of the people and also the magnitude of the roles that is going with any
Surely. Can we compare the Ministry of Interior to that of Tourism or East African Affairs?
Or even Finance?
Legally, they are the same. The only thing that makes them different is the kind of resources and the kind of roles that they play.
And based on that...
And because of that, as a cabinet secretary, nothing has been denied of him. And I come back to what I said. The two reasons why cabinet reshuffles are done is to bring efficiency. And so the president is not playing politics. If he was playing politics, then he will have looked at the pre-elections agreements between him and Moses Kuria, between him and probably Alfred Mutua, who are also party leaders. But he did look at that. So that basically tells you that the president is not looking at the political angle of these reshuffles. Because if it was political, the agreement, the pre-elections agreement will have been the ones that has been considered. But he's looking at the efficiency of those people. And I've given you initially when I spoke about Alfred Mutua. He actually went to Germany and he came and said he's got 5,000 jobs. He said he came from Canada, and the envoys in this country rejected that. So that basically tells you that the image, before you ask your question, the image that he was probably portraying was that he is not efficient in that ministry. Exactly. So the president is trying to take him to a ministry where he can become efficient. So that is one of the reasons why cabinet reshuffles
How do you rate Alfred Mutua's performance in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Personally, my rating, because there is a personal, I think...
Poor? Excellent?
I will not say excellent, because if he was excellent, the president will have also rated him excellent, and I think the president will have retained him.
So his movement from this ministry was definitely due to performance?
Yes, it's because of performance. And that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm saying,
CS Moses Kuria?
That is exactly, that is what I'm saying. It is reshuffles are done so that to create efficiency. The other bit, which is not very spoken about, is to warn, the office holders that you are found wanting. And I think the president is sending both. The president wants this country to run efficiently, and so he's reshuffling them. But he's also telling them, gentlemen, you are wanting in terms of your performance, so if you continue like this, probably in the next ministry that I put you, probably I'll show you the door. And William Ruto will not be afraid to show anybody the door. So nobody can come here and say, we expected William Ruto, the president, to have fired anybody. He's not the kind of a guy who will be afraid. He wants to give everybody a chance. If you cannot perform, if you're a fish and you cannot perform climbing trees, let you be taken to water so that you can swim. If then you cannot swim in water and you're a fish, then you have nothing but to be fried.
1 year is enough. 1 year is enough to rate whether or not a government officer is able to perform.
I mean, yes. For me,
the president should be able to crack the whip and say it's at high time you just leave my cabinet.
I agree. I think it's within the discretion of the president. Mheshimiwa has just said that these offices are reconstituted as from the president's discretion and pleasure. That he reconstituted for efficiency, it's talked about. So why then so other ministries affected than the others? When we talk about performance, we can document that there are a number of cabinet secretaries that have been on the public, that have been, their performances and their utterances have caused a stir. In the public. There's a time when the held interior ministry was up in arms in terms of, not able to contain, the internal insurgency, when criminal elements, were raiding people, and stealing cattle in some areas of this country, there was a problem there, to the point that, Kenyans felt that he was not performing in the ministry. I mean, the economic advisor made very serious statements, and fortunately and unfortunately, he's been co-opted in the cabinet as well. And we can go ahead with the sport ministry and all these things. So the question is, why are others axed and the rest, are still there? Why is Alice Wahome, just reshuffled because having controversies, with the principal secretaries in terms of resignation and all these things? So there is a sense in which Kenyans feel that this whole dynamic of political game, in the whole arrangement of performance of the cabinet secretaries, but as well that you've asked us a question, is President Ruto torn in between ambition and the pledge to make sure that there is management to manage these cabinet secretaries, and some of them principal secretaries, and proposed CAs who are big party players, and some of them are party owners, I think the answer is yes, because then to avoid a possible fallout as early as now, it is important for the president to manage both governing and both politics. President Kibaki was known not to manage in his management of politics. And that in itself, even as much as is attributed to economic progress of the country, management of politics, he scored lowly. So I think our president, and I've said, he is a big political player and a master politician who must contain his governing coalition to make sure that there is no disquiet within as early as now, and also to make sure that he is appeared to deliver for Kenyans. It's not an easy job. It requires an astute politician and a manager to make sure that there is both economic stability, that there is both political stability as well, that there is no disquiet within the ruling coalition. So for me, this is my own point of view. I still see this as demotion and promotion.
Okay, because Honorable Lotee, in this reshuffle, the president has been forced to reconstitute and rename a ministry. It would appear for the purposes of retaining someone within cabinet, because by taking the docket for foreign affairs to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, automatically it left one person, at least one person, without a substantive job in that cabinet. So CS Moses Kuria now goes to a newly reconstituted ministry, Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, that was not there before. The other reconstituted ministry goes to Aisha Jumwa, that's Gender, Culture, Arts and Heritage. Definitely the president looks to be working extra hard to create positions within cabinet to retain some people. Do you see it that way?
No. No, why? Nobody, first of all, has forced him to create this position.
What about the prevailing political environment?
That is your view. Nobody forced him to create the kind of portfolios that we've got now when he came into office. And nobody can force him to create or not disband some of the positions. So it is within his powers. So for me, I think he's looked at it and felt that this country requires a portfolio that talks about performance and delivery. Because this country, there's a lot of plans, but sometimes there is very little in terms of evaluating these plans. And so we have to have a performance docket and a delivery so that we can be able, after every year, look back and see, did we achieve what we did not? Kenyans are actually taxed now, and Kenyans are feeling the pain, and Kenyans are saying, what we want to do now, we want to see the effect of our taxes. And so the president, by his own wisdom, decided to do this. So first, he's not forced. Two, he is evaluating his government, and probably based on that evaluation, and that could be like, that is the docket that was required. So it could have been that he created the docket first, because that was the docket that was required by the exigency of time. And then when he created it, he realized that he has fewer cabinet secretaries than the dockets. And so he had to transfer some of the positions to the Prime Cabinet Secretary. So that could have been what led the president to even do the reshuffle. So let us not look at it like he's been forced or that circumstances that he's trying to keep people. I think for me, the president is trying to deliver to Kenyans. And that is the basic thing.
Because the net effect of this is a lot of state departments have to be moved around.
Yes.
And that reorganization of government takes time.
Yes.
And it costs money.
Yes.
Moving this department from the arts, from sports, with all Talanta Hela and all the plans that Ababu Namambo already had, just to create a slot for someone else. This performance contracting, the Prime Cabinet CS already had his grip on it. Now it has been moved to create a position for someone else. Definitely the president appears to be struggling, working extra hard to ensure no one leaves his cabinet.
Yes, I mean, and that's what we've alluded to here. That it was better to retain in the first phase than appeared that somebody was fired. You see, and the conversation is either Kenyans were probably expecting a cabinet reshuffle with other people completely taken out of the cabinet. But the president, I think, in his discretion saw that, to avoid, an early murmuring within, the disquiet within and without, is to just reorganize. Now, the repercussions of that is exactly what you're saying, is that some state departments has to be moved up and down and reorganized. I mean that also, apart from taking a lot of time, it also takes time for the newly installed, PS within those ministries to catch up as well, and also perform. Because remember what the president said at the presence of the State House, that some of these principal secretaries are not even aware of the tasks they're required to do. Then the president himself knows very much about your ministry than you yourself. But again, how then would that happen? Because it takes a lot of time for these, civil servants or public servants to catch up, within their roles, that are assigned to them. The other dynamic also is it an infill, to manage without not really making sure that people are taken into respective position out of merit. And you've also said that how would you take a performance contract from Honorable Mudavadi and give it to Moses Kuria? That also raises a lot of questions. Because then how would you expect him to review the performance of the cabinet secretaries? He himself has fallen into the acts of performance, as according to what Honorable is talking about. So that whole dynamic of who is bigger than who is larger than, and it's there. Whether we want to admit it or not, it is there. That some ministries, by the virtue of their composition, by the virtue of the state departments and of the resources they require, some of these positions are larger than the others.
Yes.
You can't compare defense and tourism and mining and all those things. Okay. You can't compare the foreign affairs by others, by the virtue. If we were to go by what Honorable is saying, by even that virtue of the yardstick that you're using to measure them, other ministries are much super than the others as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me switch the conversation slightly, because you talked about a lot of criticism towards the reshuffle. There's one particular move that the president has made that is receiving a lot of accolades, even on social media. And that is still with the CS Moses Kuria. The person replacing him in that docket, Rebecca Miano, this is a former Kenyan CEO, moved to cabinet. And I'm reading a tweet here by David Osiani, he's a former chief administrative secretary in that Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, and he says, I endorse the appointment of CS Rebecca Miano to that ministerial portfolio. Her emergence there in this cabinet reshuffle is timely and befitting. I look at another tweet, Pauline Joroge, a very serious critic of this administration, and she says, CS Rebecca Miano, Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, this is well deserved. Rebecca Miano is one of those CSs who's been very quiet, less talked about, but her credentials If you look at her credentials, she's one of those who truly deserves a serious docket. What do you make of this movement to the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry?
For me, I'll still come back to where it started from. The president is trying to create efficiency. And I appreciate the fact that Rebecca Miano is receiving a lot of accolades to have actually been the person who was supposed to manage this Ministry of Trade, Investment, Trade and Industry, because her credentials and also her career path has shown that she's been able to be a good manager. She's not a politician. And I think this country requires investment. This country requires people that can negotiate investments for this country. This country requires people that can negotiate trade. And this country also requires people that can be able to create our industries. Sure. And so for me, I think we come back to the president is not a politician here when he is doing this. The president is a manager. He wants to manage this country well. And so the president has looked at the ministers and realized that Rebecca Miano was supposed to be in the first place, the person who sits in that docket. Moses Kuria has been given 1 year, and 1 year you can actually tell that, well, we've been able to open markets. You've seen him in Kajiado recently. You've seen him in Kakamega. We've seen him in many of these places opening markets. But probably that is just some bit of performance that we've seen from Moses Kuria. So I think we now need to bring the performance that we saw in Kenyan, that made Kenyan grew in leaps and bounds to levels where it was when Rebecca Miano was there. So for me, accolades are there. I agree with the president. The cabinet as politicians and the cabinet as technical persons. And I think Rebecca Miano is a technical person that is supposed to build this country. I agree. The president is not looking at politics of 2027. The president is looking at efficiency. And Rebecca Miano is now seated at the right position.
Okay.
Good.
Daniel, because we saw the kind of issues that the CS Moses Kuria had, in that even in the latest trip by the president to the US, he had to take Aidan Mohammed with him. And at some point, Aidan was even introduced as CS in charge of trade. Now, do you think that the president has gotten this particular one right in this reshuffle?
I mean, yes. Give it to him on some appointments. And yes, we are offering a constructive critique to the government. We are not sitting here and just criticizing, and without not really also acknowledging that there are some good things that this regime is doing. So the understanding, the realization, and this, like I said, this was coming when the president was talking about the performance, of some cabinet secretaries. Kenyans could have learned that the president right now is looking into the delivery of the Kenya Kwanza, agenda, of the pledge that was given to Kenyans. And I see a systematic drift also, and I agree with what Honorable is talking about, that there is a drift in him now to manage politics and delivery. But in terms of delivery of the agenda, is to bring in probably more technocrats, experienced people with little touch in politics to deliver his agenda. And for Madam Miano, I think that was well deserved, because you could see the progress from a ministry, her performance before. So that for me, I also see it as as a score to this government. Well, we've talked about Mudavadi is a score. I mean, for his performance as well deserved on his nomination. And I wish the president to add him more portfolio in this government, because you see, beyond being an ANC, I think that getting it right for him, this was a well-deserved nomination. And people, there are more other people, probably outside, who could,
disagrees with you.
Save this government from...
That, Musalia Mudavadi being given that one is having Madividi just jettisoned out of the country. The Foreign Affairs Ministry will keep Mudavadi out of the country almost permanently, and that's out of politics. That's Herman Manyora political.
I mean, Manyora has his own opinion, and we've differed on different things, again, on the view. But for me, take it from my end, this is a very serious portfolio. And I agree, this is where the point of convergence with my good MP, that we really require a serious redemption when it comes to having Kenyans being marketed as a serious international player. And, you know, and we would have wished that we would have discussed also, and I foresee us probably discussing matters of international, you know, our image as well, that this is a serious take that for the better time, Kenya had been known, especially after the election, as a battlegrounds, you know, probably as an instability region. And I think it's time that the president also thought the importance of getting someone who receives regional or international acceptance that can be introduced to the international community as a possible. All these particular prospective candidates, you know, Dr. Herman Manyora must know that all these particular prospective candidates to one time has been exposed to the global nations as a probable candidate that can be accepted wide. Okay. So I think this is what I see, you know.
Let's take a look at another big move there. Alice Wahome heading to the Ministry of Lands and Public Works, Housing Development, which is a big docket even for the president himself with the housing issue there. Switching positions with Zachariah Njeru taking over the water, sanitation and irrigation position. We've seen the CS Wahome having difficulty with her PS at the Ministry of Water, and that was well documented. It was all out in the media. But her being given a bigger position, that says something about her.
Yeah, well, true. Well, the disagreement between the PS and the CS, this is not the only docket that we've got disagreements. We've seen disagreements here and there between the PSs and the CSs. But the fact that the president is also trying to bring efficiency, and I will always come back to efficiency, because he does not want to see this kind of wrangles. And so one, the president, as within his own wisdom, saw that Alice Wahome could have even performed better in lands. She performed in water, despite the skirmishes and the differences that is documented. And the president has even separated these people and also taken the PS from water to another department, not water any longer. So I think the Department of Water now is clean. It's got new people. There's a new PS coming in and there's a new CS coming in. Alice Wahome has been promoted, if that is anything to go by.
Now you agree that...
And he's just admitted.
I've said, if you cut me, I say, if there's anything to go by, because I wanted to continue with my statement. If that is anything to go by. But legally and everything, all cabinet secretaries are the same. Probably the portfolios, they're always different, but the position as a cabinet secretary is the same. I will always insist on that, and that is what it is. So she's been promoted to probably a better, a more demanding, a more resourced, a bigger sized Ministry of Lands, which is critical. So that basically tells you that the president did not look at the skirmishes between, or the differences between the PS and the CS as anything that killed the performance of the CS. So that will not be anything that made the president move her. It is not the differences. It is her performance, even at the Ministry of Water. Okay. So, for me, I think it is the right thing to do.
What are your assessment of this move? Lands is definitely big.
Yes, and yes, this is another. No, it's another move that is very critical for me, because you already have a cabinet secretary that is entangled in row. And, that has got a lot of antagonism on how he manages the Ministry of Water. A very crucial docket, as, Honorable has mentioned. But now you take him to lands, which is even more riddled, with a lot of, historical injustices and all these, push and pull between NLC and, the ministry itself. I tend to think that, this is probably another slight miscalculation, because I probably had thought that the president would get, even the PS. I mean, I think Nixon Korir should be in this particular ministry.
Lands Ministry.
And a number of players that, vibrant, that could manage this as well. Those who have been through this process. And this is the danger that you asked before. What really happens, the disruption that happened in the transition process, that you take a minister or PS to another docket and find controversies there, and begins to acclimatize with the environment. For me, I am very critical of them. I don't know how it will turn, but I'm very, very critical, not in the persona of Mheshimiwa Wahome, but I think in the nature of what that ministry especially holds. Being land is a very critical issue, and housing, and remember, it's housing and urban development. We are talking about matters of probably affordable housing that is still controversial. Here, we are talking about matters of urban development that is still under consideration. So here is another ministry with very critical state departments and a lot of issues currently that is bedeviling this ministry. I wonder if he's going to manage it, okay. If she's going to manage it, sorry.
Because of time, we may not be able to go through all the changes, but there's one that we'll definitely have to mention away from the cabinet, and that's the appointment of the government spokesperson. This position was previously occupied by Gabriel Oguda, who moved to the county, I think to Siaya County. Now, Isaac Mwaura, former nominated senator, has been appointed to that position. And my colleague here at TV47, Mwanaisha Chizuga, alongside political analyst Gabriel Muduma, have been appointed as deputy government spokespersons. Of interest is the fact that Isaac Mwaura was one of the 50 nominees for the positions of cabinet chief administrative secretaries, which was stopped by the court. The issue is still before the courts, so we may not go into that. But his appointment to a different position, even before the court makes a determination, says something. Honorable Lotee, as we make your final comments as well because of time.
Good, thank you. I think this position of the government spokesperson came into limelight when Alfred Mutua took it. When Kibaki came into power. I think during Moi's time, it was a very lull position. Nobody knew so much about it. After which, then we've actually seen the government spokesperson coming in, not as strong as Alfred Mutua, because Alfred Mutua was able to create a name. Actually, it nearly became like a ministry and a minister, that particular docket. When Gabriel Oguda came, he wasn't able to pick to the shoes of Alfred Mutua. And I think that position has always had a very silent government spokespersons. The fact that now we've got my friend, Senator, Dr. Isaac Mwaura taking in, basically tells you two things. One, it tells you that the president respects the rule of law, that when the courts pronounce that the positions of the cabinet chief administrative secretaries were not anything to go by, and I think the ruling of the High Court said that probably 23 were allowed. Those are the ones that the courts could allow because there was public participation and the advertisements. The rest were not. The president never forced. And it's now a year since that decision was made. And I think there should be a ruling that is coming up, I think today, on the same, the Court of Appeal. And the fact that the president is moved on, the president did not want to antagonize the court, and I do not want us to discuss things that are on the courts until when the rulings are made. But I think there is a president in this country. When the BBI started, even when Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, and yet BBI was a government-pushed agenda, when the lower courts pronounced that BBI was not legal, when they went to the higher court will only increase the volume of what the lower court said. And finally, the Court of Appeal actually killed BBI. The same thing might be happening in this CAS's position, because the lower court said it was not legal. And then they went to the High Court, and then now they've gone to the Court of Appeal. If you see the readings at the lower courts to the High Court, and now you expect what the Court of Appeal is going to be. The Court of Appeal probably is going to even increase the volume of what the High Court has said and also what the lower courts have said. So what Ruto is saying, and I'm not him, but looking at the political undertones and his decision, is probably trying to say, either way, I am still in charge of making decisions, and so let Isaac Mwaura gets a position as the government spokesperson. In any case, he's a person that can be able to speak on behalf of government. Okay. So it might be, and this is me, that the president has actually seen the history of how courts makes ruling, and he might actually also already seen that the Court of Appeal might uphold, we might agree with the decisions of the lower courts. Okay. And so he's also now trying to put his people to stabilize his government. So that is my view. I do not know how to say that is the view of anybody, but I think the president might have looked at the history of the courts and the fact that he will respect, the fact that he will respect the rule of the courts. Okay. If he wasn't, probably he will just keep Mwaura waiting for the CSS positions. Okay.
Final words, Daniel Orogo?
I like the presumption of the probability of a ruling that might come either today or the other day, and I like the analysis that came from Honorable. I have interacted with Mheshimiwa Mwaura by the fact that we both have gone through a cohort in political leadership and governance program, PLGP, that has trained young people on leadership and governance. And, we have interacted on session, and I've personally, heard him, his presentation and how he presents the view and the position of things he believes in, and, his history and resilience that attracts me and, amazes me. So I think, again, give it to the President of the Republic on his appointment based on merit and based on people's capability of delivering on the position. That one I agree with Mheshimiwa here. But I think as we also move forward, Mwanaisha and Gabe Mudhuma has been very also candid in his position about the government's take on different matters. I think this is well deserved for me, another appointment. However, I am still critical on what really this government spokesperson, what really is the extent of the seriousness of the position, because then we also have the position of the state house spokesperson. There's always a number of spokespeople in this ministry. So I think even as much as it's well deserved, more probably is for Kenyans to try to understand the terms of reference and what is required, particular for the understanding of these spokespeople and spokesperson. Okay. You're asking me to conclude, but we will not conclude by one, acknowledging the President's visit to this region, the critical most region of Nyanza region. My appeal as a citizen of the Republic of Kenya is that the President would finally stamp his authority on the state of security of Sondu and Kericho border. Okay. Because I, as a citizen of Republic of Kenya, would not want to see the images that we are seeing, the loss of lives, the continued instability. I plead with the President of the Republic to pronounce an executive order to quell and finally deal with the people that are attacking each other in Sondu, both on the areas. Okay. Thank you so much, Daniel Orogo, political analyst, and Honorable Lotee Titus, MP Kacheliba, our panelists this morning, helping us understand the nitty-gritties that come with the latest cabinet reshuffle, the very first under the William Ruto presidency. Now, gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to come to this panel today, and allow me to read this editorial comment as we come to the end of this session. Now, Article 45 of the Kenyan Constitution rightly emphasizes a place of family as a natural and fundamental unit of society, deserving the unwavering recognition and protection of the state. However, over time, this crucial institution has come under threat, eroding the very values it was designed to uphold. Globalization, shifting political landscapes, and evolving cultural norms have all played a role in reshaping our understanding of family and community values. As we navigate these transformations, it is heartening to witness the government's approval of the National Policy on Family Promotion and Protection. This policy comes as a breath of fresh air
as it seeks to set a new course towards the promotion of intergenerational knowledge transfer, preservation of our cherished norms, and the protection of age-old taboos that have bound our communities for generations. Now, according to the Cabinet Office, this policy seeks to provide a framework on addressing the numerous challenges facing our families and communities today, including loss of values, a noticeable decline in the sense of civic duty, failure to strike a reasonable work-life balance, as well as a lack of unity and cooperation among community members. Yet, welcome as this intervention may be, we would be wrong to see it as a panacea for all the problems we face as a society. Our challenges need more beyond a few items of legislation. The policy, however, represents a significant step in the right direction. It is a commitment from the government to work collaboratively with stakeholders to safeguard